Hi there, welcome to the Noah Presgrove case. Today, focusing in on the situation with the black shorts, the treatment of them compared to the phone, how they were both at the party house, yet one was handed in to police, the other one wasn't. Trying to understand, was it selective? Is there a reason behind it? Is it because people weren't aware of how important that they could have been, etc.? And it is stemming on from an important conversation which came about recently on Facebook. Taking a look at the post, also when talking about the condition of Noah's body, the area where clothing would have been associated, and trying to understand the condition of the white shorts compared to the black shorts, compared to Noah's body, and how does it link together if there is one possible. I'll be sharing with you my thoughts, adding on with previous points made by myself, and also acknowledging what members of the general public have said in response to the Facebook post. So make sure to stick around for the full understanding. Big shout out to the people that were able to watch from start to finish last night with my live premiere. And it was a very long video. Wasn't really anticipating it for it to be that long, but when you just go with the flow, it happens. Taking consideration, the video last night was supposed to be the day before, but because of timing, upload time, and just the length of the video, just wasn't able to get it done. So I just rescheduled it the next day. But hopefully today, with this video, it should be all within the same day, hopefully. Welcome if you are here, and for those during the live premiere, share your thoughts and opinions in the live chat box on the right-hand side of the screen there. And at any point, if you want to give your feedback, thoughts, feelings, opinions, whether you agree, disagree, questions, answers, be sure to drop a comment down below under the video. It will help with spreading awareness. If you want to support my channel, there is a PayPal link and channel membership down below, pinned message. And if you want to catch up on my recent videos and coverage for the full playlist on the case, you'll be able to find that top right corner where the eye symbol is up there. So what I can also incorporate today is a bit of an autopsy diagram which was drawn by, I think, one of the members of the general public when showing it visually, besides all the fancy words which we would have seen in the actual report, and then it being labelled out, but specifically focusing in on the surface level type of damage, the abrasions, the scrapes and the marks, what you could associate with if you're wearing clothing, it is already damage underneath it, scrapes and grazes. You'd expect the material of the clothing to take some of the damage and absorb some of the impact and friction with whatever it's making contact with, or you would think so. And of course, there might be some exceptions, and I'll try and acknowledge them later on. But the order of how we'll do it today, we'll take a look at the post, I'll read it through, then I'll give you my thoughts and analysis, then refer back to other people's comments. Let's begin. You can find this on the Noah Presgrove case discussion group, June 29th. Credit to Danielle Castle. I'll zoom in just a little bit so it's a bit easier for you to read. If you wonder why the font text looks different in style, that will just be personal preference for the individual that was using it at the time and then got the screenshots, basically. But you'll be able to find it yourself if you are on this page, and it's not that long ago either. So Danielle says, if LE obtained Noah's phone from the party house, which they did get in possession of at some point, why wasn't the black shorts also collected or given to the LE? Any idea how or who gave Noah's phone to LE? Jack's white shorts, undamaged, found at the scene, the highway, in the middle of the road, picked up by Jack himself, who placed them in his bed of his truck, then folded and placed next to Noah by LE. Yeah, supposedly. Noah's black shorts found by who? Later on the bathroom floor at the party house, and returned to the family described as tattered. Noah's autopsy showed abrasions on his legs, thighs, knees, hip, ankle. The black shorts would have been damaged if he was wearing them. but the shorts weren't on his body at the time. They weren't at the scene either. Some key valid points mentioned by Danielle Kessel there. I'll do my best to give my thoughts on the matter. So yes, it does appear to be true that the phone of Noah's was handed in to police somehow. As to whom it was and what their mindset was at the time, it could determine why the shorts were treated differently. Let's just say the partygoers or a partygoer that found Noah's phone, because it being electronical, digital, and it can have a trace, it can have messages, call logs, it can tell a story, it can have data on it, it could help explain the situation, and people's mindsets, they might just think by default that that's something that the police would be interested in. Whereas a pair of black shorts, which have been just left behind, not even on Noah's body, they wouldn't be that relevant because it wouldn't tell a story. What would tell a story more so in clothing is whatever was on Noah at the time of when he walked away, not when he walked away from his black shorts, supposedly. Of course, you can put the argument across and say, due to the damage sustained to Noah's body and separately what's happened with the black shorts, you could say there's a correlation for damage to be on Noah's body in the areas of where the shorts were, and for the black shorts to be damaged in those areas too. Noah must have been wearing them at the time, right? You can put that argument across, but if you do, then it does come back to foul play and manipulating with the scene, which is still open for discussion and talking about. Just take in mind, I don't forget, okay? I always do reconsider. It just depends what's being talked about at the time, but just need to slow it down, dial it back just a little bit to go a bit deeper, I would say. Noah Presgrove at the party, side-by-side rollover. Did it cause any damage to the vehicle? Supposedly not. But did it cause any damage to the party goers? Yeah, minimal. Either a bloodied nose or a lip with Noah Presgrove, and at least a Texas boy too, from what Robin Smith had previously said on Facebook. Any more injuries? Who knows? It's not really been talked about. But if we're going to possibly follow the pattern of, if there's damage to Noah at any point, if there's clothing that's worn in that particular area, then there might be damage to that too. Well, in terms of the side-by-side rollover, might not be the best comparison, in honesty, because the damage has been described to Noah's face, nose area or lip. Noah wasn't wearing clothing around that part on his body, his face. But likely he would have been wearing his black shorts at the time of the side-by-side rollover. Is it possible whatsoever that because of the black shorts described by partners in true crime as tattered, ripped, in bad condition, because when it rolled over, did the shorts catch on the vehicle? Did they tear, snag that way? When Noah, if he fell out the vehicle or was trying to climb out, did the shorts, the black ones, catch on the equipment, on the vehicle itself? Anything loose or sticking out, and it just ripped? It's always worth taking in consideration. The other aspect of damaged shorts would have been if, let's just say, in the back of a moving vehicle, and if you used to fall out or fall off, but your shorts caught on to the vehicle, you went one way, the shorts remained, there might have been a little tear there. But due to the white shorts being in the middle of the road, you would think that if Noah had died on the road with the white shorts, then likely it would have been them that Noah was wearing if he had fallen out of a moving vehicle. But it's still possible that based on that concept, when falling out, it doesn't always have to equate to damage, ripping and tearing. If the material's better quality than other, a bit more flexible than other, or just that the fitting of it being around the waist area under the tummy is a little bit more loose, possibly. It depends, right? The pull factor, the force as well. but I'm just trying to trace it back to an event that may have occurred or did occur at the party in which Noah was wearing black shorts and how it could have impacted the quality of them, the condition. It's been mentioned that Noah was wrestling with Mikey Lair at the party. Was that Sunday night? Was it early Monday morning? Damage to black shorts likely would have had to have happened after 1:50 in the morning, or at least 1:05. At least 1:05, you do see Noah wearing the black shorts, and although they're a bit dusty, dirty on the bottom area, they're not damaged. They're not ripped. They're not torn. They're in okay condition, pretty much. So events after 1:05 in the morning and possibly 1:50, since Noah was in the bathroom with Jack. I can't remember if you could clearly see the black shorts on Noah or get a decent look. Probably not because of the camera angle, but you could assume that it was still in okay condition there. So round it up, it would be 2 in the morning onwards when possible damage was applied to Noah's shorts in one way or another. Take in mind, the whole basis of trying to understand how they could have been damaged is based on what Partners in True Crime said, claiming they were ripped and torn. It was Alicia Lee, Caden Pressey's mom, that responded back and said that Partners in True Crime got it wrong, that they weren't ripped or torn. I mean, if you got a pair of black shorts, either they're damaged or they're not. Partners in True Crime say they're damaged. Alicia says they weren't damaged whatsoever. Why are the contradictions? Why are the discrepancies? Why does there need to be? How hard is it? If Partners in True Crime have seen the black shorts, if Alicia has seen the black shorts, then they should both come to the same conclusion, right? Due to the condition that they are in. It makes me wonder if either Partners in True Crime or Alicia haven't actually seen the shorts. And they're just assuming that the condition of them are and were okay. But why does there need to be such a division over such a small scale thing? Serve it as a microcosm for the case and community as a whole. I think some of these little inconsistencies and contradictions are very, very important, and if I had to be honest with you, the two biggest ones in this case are the condition of the black shorts, with Partners in True Crime saying they're ripped and torn, and Alicia saying, nope, they got that wrong, they weren't in that condition or shape. And then the other one being Caden Pressey saying, police never took my phone, never analysed my data. And Alicia said, the police took Caden's phone, did an analysis and confirmed the timeline of 5:15 was correct. Two contrasting big differences with what's been said. It's a problem amongst the same theme as well, respectively. So with that being in mind, it does make you think, well, what you're supposed to believe in. And that's why when the present and the future is uncertain, and that can apply anywhere, really, all you can do is guess, theorize, work with what you've got. And maybe often you don't have much. You don't have much to begin with. You may not have much onwards, and who knows down the line. But just to try to get a grip of things and to try and get a little bit of an understanding, just use what's available. And in this case, what's available is two different contrasting points and claims about the shorts. On the basis that the black shorts were damaged, that's where you can trace it back to events at the party. Such events which may have caused ripping or tearing of black shorts, it's possible, definitely. Accidental, prank, who knows? A person could have gone up to Noah, grabbed the shorts and pulled or tried pulling them off, or tried pulling them down, and if Noah resisted, one going up, one going down, could have caused material to tear a little, if not more. So something small scale like that, it's about understanding that there can be dark reasons and theories, outcomes to the condition of the black shorts, but then there are also innocent explanations too. At the end of the day, it's important to consider both aspects for that balance, and furthermore, just for that context, because without the context, it can be deafening in terms of not knowing and wanting to know, right? And in general, when you finally know, when you get to know, it just adds a layer of understanding, and you can build off from there. But I guess we're not quite there yet in certain areas of the case. So besides a prank of pulling or trying to rip the shorts of Noah, if people were messing about, any possibility to the link of Mikey and Noah doing the wrestling when grappling and grabbing? Did Mikey accidentally grab Noah's black shorts a little too hard and it caused that to tear or rip? I mean, depending on how bad the black shorts were in, the damage to them, it could determine whether Noah would continue to wear them on at the party or not. Now, it does make you think. When Noah Presgrove had his shower, it's been described by some witnesses of the footage that's claimed Noah was wearing his black shorts in the shower. It's been said on the sideline recently that the shorts of Noah were found discarded, laying about in the bathroom and wet. If they're wet, depending on how wet they are, it could be associated with what the witnesses reported, as in Noah wearing them in the shower. Did Noah wear them in the shower because he couldn't be bothered to take them off? Is it because he was in the presence of girls and other people, so for privacy reasons he kept them on? Depends how you look at it. It's been mentioned by Carter Combs that one of Noah's buddies jumped on in shortly after with Noah in the shower and they were laughing and joking. Is it possible in an innocent way if Noah was to be wearing the black shorts in the shower, besides them getting wet? If when the best buddy jumped on in and whilst they're messing about, did the best buddy almost slip in the shower and grab onto Noah, as in the shorts, and it caused that to tear or rip? And it was quite funny and amusing at the time, the noise of the rip and the damage done to the shorts. And Noah's like, oh no, look at these. What am I going to do now? I can't be wearing these anymore. An innocent event like that. But there are counterpoints, as in Noah wasn't wearing black shorts in the shower. Is it still justified as to why they were wet on the floor then, somehow? Maybe if water splashed, maybe when getting in and out. But it depends how wet the shorts were and for how long as well. Because due to the temperature and the weather out there, how long would it take for things to evaporate and dry up? Like wetness on the patio area, the front porchway. Like when Caden Pressey at 6:30 onwards reported that the patio area, well, the front porchway, the steps, that area near to the door, there was like a pool or a wetness patch. Well, it couldn't have been from much earlier on because it would have dried up by then, so it must have been a bit more recent, possibly with the cooler, back and forth, a spillage of liquid, possibly. Yes, that's to do with other stuff, and we can do a separate video on that. But I just wanted to give additional examples to trying to understand why something could be wet, and then trying to time or gauge when it could have happened. Just like Jasmine Millan at 3:41 in the morning, with the snap saying, well, Noah Presgrove is missing, her hair appearing wet, her shirt having wet patches. How far does that time back to when the shower actually took place before 3:30? In between what time frame? In between 2 in the morning to 3:30? Or 3 in the morning to 3:30? Who knows? Caden's timelines, besides the timing itself, 2:42. What was visibly seen at Noah, Jack, Jasmine, beer pong table? Before or after side-by-side rollover? Maybe beforehand. Did Caden recall seeing Noah in the black shorts at 2:42? Did Caden recall seeing Noah in black shorts at 3:20? I wonder, because that would speak volumes. Let's just say that the black shorts were true to be found dumped in the bathroom. It would mean Noah would have to have worn other clothing. And if he didn't have any spare clothing, it would explain as to why borrowing the white shorts from Jack, because they're best friends looking out for one another. And if Caden Pressey at 3:20, he didn't, but if he did and said, well, I saw Noah, even though Caden didn't, Caden said he assumed or presumed that Noah was still there, even though he couldn't actually see him. So maybe I won't give that scenario because it's just not applicable. But let's just say at 2:42 that when Caden saw Noah, if Caden had said, not that he did, but in a different scenario, if Caden said, yeah, I saw Noah playing beer pong with Jack, Jasmine, but as well, he was wearing white shorts. But then you could gauge that and say, the moment Noah is wearing white shorts is probably the moment he's already had his shower wash. Because the way I measure it is the timing of when the black shorts were damaged and ripped, supposedly, and the timing of when being dirty. If it correlates to damaged shorts at the same time or close to just after as being dirty, then it follows a certain order. What I also need to acknowledge, because it's important, damage to clothing can determine whether you continue to wear it or not. If you're wearing a top and there's all tear marks within it, okay? So like with the top that I've got on, depending what happened, if someone was to grab you by the neck and pull, okay? Or to the side like that, wherever, and it caused it to tear or rip, or they grabbed it by two and ripped it apart like that, it could cause such damage that it's just not practical to wear. If it's almost torn in half into two, massive holes, things exposed, hanging out, it's not exactly appropriate, it's not exactly practical for the wearer, especially depending on the timing, the weather, and the conditions there. Now, if it's your shirt and it's hot and warm, and you take it off, or it's more so ripped or damaged, you're more likely to just take it off and say, oh well. If you were in cold conditions and you were trying to survive and your clothing got damaged, regardless of how bad it is, you're more likely to just say, screw it, I'm going to keep it on and try and keep as warm as possible for the reason of survival. For Noah Presgrove at the party, if any clothing was damaged, it's not the end of the world for him due to where he's at. There's a spare clothing about, even if it means borrowing it, and the temperature season at the time, it wasn't really cold, more humid. Hence why it explains why Noah Presgrove was, for most part of it, topless at the party. I mean, as for the white or the flag tank top which Noah was wearing, or at some point, do we actually have any photo evidence from the party of when Noah was wearing it? Because I've yet to see that proof. Okay, he may have taken it down and likely was wearing it when he came down. But my question is, whilst Noah was topless at the party, on what day did Noah bring the clothing, the tank top, down? Did he wear it on the Saturday when he came down, then took it off at the party? Did he go back home Sunday after breakfast, morning time, with his tank top on or in his pocket or tied around him? Then when it came to Sunday afternoon, going into the evening, when Noah was driven by Gage Jessen, supposedly this time round, given a free ride down to the party, was Noah wearing a tank top again? You'd anticipate that if that's what it's been talked about. At the party there are clothing associated with Noah present at the time, but also missing and not returned back since. So, interesting how some clothing left at the party goes missing, other bits of clothing doesn't go missing. Now, you could say maybe some items are more important than others. Some items may have more evidence and DNA on them compared to others, and that's why they're disposed of differently or taken care of differently. But then also in innocent ways, some items could have been lost on different days at different times. And if Noah was clueless to it, he may not know where to look for them. And if anyone else was nearby, opportunistic behaviour or misidentifying an item as theirs when it's not, like the sunglasses, it can explain that. And there is video footage and proof of supposedly the day of when Noah lost his glasses for good. That would be Saturday, the first day he attended. Because evening time, night, he was slapped by Shandon, the blonde girl. The glasses fell off, and from then on, going into Sunday and Monday, there was no more public photos or videos that show Noah wearing the black shades. So at what point was the tank top lost? Don't really have anything to go off from that because there's no video footage or photos of Noah wearing it at the party from my knowledge. So there are some comparisons and photos which just can't be done, as you'll know. So if there's any other items that are visually documented through photos and videos and can be compared and contrasted with time, then I will do that. I would have done an analysis of the shorts to some extent, right? Identifying that the khaki, brownish ones, beige, Saturday. That's what it's always associated as. Then the black associated as Sunday and Monday. Now, with Noah wearing black shorts on Sunday, were they the same exact shorts that were worn on the Monday as well? Because how many pairs of shorts did Noah have when he was at the party itself? Did he only have one pair and it's what he was wearing? Or did he run out of pairs of shorts at the time on any given day? Just a little question there. So, if it's not a fight with Mikey Lair that caused the ripping to the shorts, if it's not the shower, if he was wearing them and someone hopped on in and grabbed the shorts accidentally, ripping them if they slipped, if it's not that, if it wasn't the side-by-side rollover before the shower, when the vehicle rolls over, if the shorts caught on something or when being flung out, or when climbing out, the shorts caught and then ripped and tore that way, if that's not the reason behind it, then what else can it be? There might be some other more innocent examples, but I can't think of them on the spot, but maybe you can. And if any have been left out, you can always leave it down below in the comment section. All I would say is to balance it out with the darkness aspect in terms of the foul play, the possible murder, can still apply in a way to an accident as well. The condition of the black shorts could have been damaged at the time of Noah's death in some way or another. But as said, if that really was the case, would that justify and then back up Caden Pressey's claim of the black shorts being on Noah's body when Caden was there? It would make it rather tricky and awkward that, because of the timing, the actual timeline of Caden, which is in great doubt and a lot of skepticism because of the inconsistencies, the discrepancies along the way with Caden, and the counterpoint with the Mikey Lair Snapchat post at 5:27. If Caden, who can clearly identify that Mikey was with him at the highway in between 5:21 to 5:30, and yet there's proof that Mikey was in fact at the house, such as with 5:27, then it would show that Caden Pressey was either lying or more likely he got mixed up with the timing. It could well be true Mikey was with Caden, but not at 5:15 onwards, but 6 in the morning onwards. And so with that, the later on that they were there, the higher the chances that the white shorts would have been there and the black shorts likely not. based on the reports of people that were there later, based on the mention which did not give the colour away, but the acknowledgement of there was something in the road or clothing in the middle of the road, as mentioned by, I believe, Tyler Hardy. To acknowledge that something was in the middle of the road, to later be identified as the white shorts. Well, if Caden Pressey got his timing wrong and he was there later on at 6 in the morning, then what would have been in the middle of the road at that time, what Caden didn't acknowledge for some reason, would have been the white shorts, and likely Noah at that time would have been naked and not wearing black shorts. So that itself wouldn't tie in with Caden and the claim of tampering with the body in the scene. But on the sideline, if it was possible that Noah was wearing black shorts when he died, it's clear that he wasn't found with the black shorts. So it would still add in that what if, that unanswered question, that mystery of, for a person to die wearing clothing to later be found without it, and different clothing replaced but positioned elsewhere, there is a level of foul play based on that concept alone. So that does need to be acknowledged to some extent. Is there any actual evidence, hard evidence, to show Noah wearing black shorts when he walked off? I don't know. Is there any hard evidence to show Noah Presgrove before walking off at the relevant time of wearing the white shorts? Well, it's been claimed that that video does exist, but it can't be released. Or at least that's how it was worded some months ago, and still to this day, it's not been passed on to me or in general, okay? But when it is, I'll try and show you it, and that's if it exists. For me in my position, I have to be patient, because as you know, I'm a very patient individual. Maybe a little too patient. But beside that, I have to be in a position where I acknowledge it, the possibility of it existing, but I also need to balance it out with the concept of, as me, like the general public, if we haven't seen it, it's hard to believe that it does exist. But there's always that small little chance that it does exist, it can go a long way. For as long as there is a chance, it's better than nothing. And that can apply in other areas too. So, could that mentality be applied with the black shorts? As in, is there a small chance that there is footage out there which shows Noah wearing the black shorts when and if getting attacked or dying? Well, the claims which people like to make of a beatdown video, an attack video, it being recorded, do people refer to Noah wearing black shorts? From what I can remember, I don't remember hearing the mention of that, but more so the details of the number of people that were present, the references of sounds and laughing, and some details of items used. Not in terms of any video footage or photos provided, just words by the general public who claim to have seen or heard of it. It's not strong enough for that. It's not good enough, but I'm just letting you know about it, okay? So you'd have to do it as a theory and only that alone for now until evidence comes about. If Noah Presgrove was to walk away with the black shorts, and if he died wearing them, whatever means that death was, accidental or more murder, it could link on to why there was abrasions on his mid-lower body area where his shorts would be. The shorts take the brunt of the impact, the damage, the scrapes, the friction, and so on, but can only withhold so much to the point of where if there's holes or tears, once the clothing becomes exposed and open to bare flesh, that will then make contact with the ground. You call it erosion, you call it breaking down of material going through the layers, just like with a knife or a gun. Let's say you were wearing a top, you were wearing a fleece, you were wearing a coat on top of it all. If there's enough force and power, if you're going to have internal injuries from being shot or stabbed, you'd anticipate the clothing and multiple layers especially to all be damaged, or at least have traces of penetration. Got to take in mind, holes in clothing can be caused by penetration, which tends to be something somewhat sharp or somewhat blunt, but with a great level of force to pierce through. Being stabbed with a specific style of blade may cause a small penetration puncture through the clothing into the body area. Depending on the layer of clothing, it may absorb some of the impact and energy, which may slow down the object, but for most part of it, it probably will still pierce through. Sharper the object, the point, the tip, the smaller the surface area of the opening, the wound, and so on. At least with when it goes in, not to say how it comes out, and if it does come out, okay? Because depending on the blade, serrated, edges, if it's twisted or pulled, it could rip and cause a bigger hole than what it was to begin with, and that could include the clothing as well. But the initial penetration will cause a certain size, a certain hole. If it's more of a blunt, forced object with enough force, it can still pierce through in some way, but the hole is probably going to be greater, and it's not going to be a perfect hole. It's probably going to be a bit jagged, rough around the edges, and more tears and rips. With Noah Presgrove possibly being beaten with what? Blunt instruments, objects, melee items, kicks and punches, which that alone wouldn't be enough to cause penetrative wounds, depending on the angling, but more so penetrative wounds to, I guess, the clothing aspect. So it seems more likely, in my opinion, that if you used to link and associate the black shorts with Noah's injuries, the injuries to Noah can link to the damage to the shorts by the outcome of friction, tension, being dragged. If you rub something hard enough, and not for that to be taken out of context, it can cause damage. If you have a pair of shorts and if you repeatedly rubbed them against a hard, jagged surface, the friction, the tension, the speed is going to cause it to wear away. If skin was to meet sandpaper or some fast-moving object which is a little bit rough, intense friction will rip the skin off, fast or slow depending on the speed. When you get people, motorcyclists on motorbikes, and they wear leather, they wear pads, maybe a helmet, if they fall off and they glide along, scraping along the ground, you might cringe and think, oh, that must be painful. It might be to some extent, but as for the skin, more likely protected. They're the people that don't wear all the protective gear and are in casual clothing to be scraping across the ground. It's probably not going to end too well for them. A very rough example, a video once on Twitter online where in a foreign country, motorcyclist not wearing all the protective layers, just casual clothing, was on the bike going somewhat fast, ended up falling, sliding off and face first, scraping across the ground to the point where they stood up with almost like a crimson skull. All their skin ripped off their face. Bone, flesh, open wound, right? You can imagine it, and still alive, or at least in the moment, as possible. And that was by the intense friction with the face made contact made on the rough surface of the ground. Now, at a certain pace, if you used to rub a pillow or something very soft against your face, it's probably not going to wear it away. Constant rubbing over time may cause it to wear away and break down. The rougher the surface, It acts as a catalyst in speeding up with the friction and the damage done to a person, an object, clothing, and so on. That when you compare the highway to the dirt road to the pasture and the field, is there a big difference in terrain and quality of that? For most part of it, yes. The highway, I believe, is asphalt, so it's going to be a bit rough and rugged. If you used to be dragged across that, it's going to cause abrasions. And if you're going to be wearing clothing, it can cause damage to that too, by rubbing and breaking down the material to the surface layer, to the skin layer, and then the skin takes the rest of it in that order. If you used to be dragged down a dirt road, there can still be possible friction, of course, if the ground is a bit bumpy, lumpy, if there's any loose stones, embedded pebbles, little pieces in the ground which your body could catch on, right? Being dragged in some way. Catching on any vegetation, getting too close to the fence line, barbed wire, it catching on that. But likely it would involve going in one direction, and as you're moving, clothing catches onto something, almost pulling you the other way. But the force and the movement and the speed is greater going onwards, that you just rip off whatever you were attached onto, and the clothing may still remain on you, but at what cost? Damage, and as well possible damage to the body. If you're being dragged about in a field, if it's just pure grass, you wouldn't really expect much damage. You might get some grazing if there's some loose bits or sharp objects in the field, but if it's just grass, you might maybe get a grass burn. You might get a bit of itchiness if you've been dragged through grass, depending. It can happen if it's been a bit hot and humid. Your body's a bit sweaty and sticky. Overheat, friction with grass and certain vegetation could cause a reaction in some way, but not linked or applied to obviously how Noah was found in and the supposed condition of the black shorts. It can go very deep and it can expand, and we can possibly touch upon that a bit more in a second, but you can see how important it is to have the context behind whether the black shorts were truly damaged or not. Did the family acknowledge the black shorts being damaged? No. But indirectly, you could make the argument and say technically they did when Robin Smith, Ashley Chadwick were on Partners in True Crime, and whilst they were listening in to what Partners in True Crime had to say, acknowledging the condition of the black shorts being ripped and torn, Robin and Ashley did not contest it. They may have nodded their heads as well. By not contesting it implies that you agree with what's being said. And considering that Robin and Ashley did put their fingers up at times when listening to the interview, the pre-recording of Jack Newton, they had a few things to say about that. As for counterpoints, there was every opportunity for that to occur when countering Partners in True Crime and saying, well, actually, they weren't ripped or torn, and backing up what Alicia says. That never happened, though. So it comes across as if what Partners in True Crime was saying at the time is true, because Robin Smith and Ashley Chadwick, who may have seen the black shorts themselves, maybe, no guarantee, had kind of acknowledged it. So then someone like Alicia, was Alicia ever in the presence of the black shorts, yes or no? Or is Alicia basing her knowledge or her claims of what she's been told by Caden, which is outdated, as in when Caden saw Noah wearing black shorts and the condition of them were okay. But based on Caden's timeline, the original 5:15, and Caden saw Noah wearing the black shorts, I don't remember Caden ever mentioning about the condition of the black shorts. Depends where the marks and the rips and the damage was on the shorts, if they had been on Noah and if they had been at that time, what Caden says. But because it's not being acknowledged as for the condition of them, maybe when Caden told Alicia about the shorts on Noah black, because of no acknowledgement of damage, that's why Alicia has countered it to Partners in True Crime indirectly by saying, no, they weren't ripped or torn. But if Noah was to be found on the highway with black shorts and damage underneath, wouldn't you expect damage to be on top as well? Just like if you was to get shot or stabbed and you had clothing on at the time and you got shot in the chest, for example, or stabbed in the heart, literally, if you're wearing clothing at the time of when that happens, yes, you'd probably anticipate damage to the body itself and internally, but more than likely you would anticipate damage first to the layers of what you was wearing for the object and item to make contact first with clothing, through the next layer, then eventually the skin, the muscle, and beyond. There's an order to it. Is there some possible exceptions where there might be an explanation? Maybe, but I can't think of that on the spot. But what you could argue and put across is, if a person was to be shot or stabbed or both, if they were naked at the time or unclothed, it can explain the damage to the body and beyond. If they were then clothed up, clothing was put on their body for some reason whilst they're dead or bleeding out, yes, it could explain that there's blood on the clothing, but no penetrative wound, no hole, no opening, no exit hole either. Because when they died or when they were hurt, or both, occurred when they weren't wearing clothing and then clothed up later. For anyone to be clothed up or unclothed after or during the death of someone, more so after the death, does imply a level of foul play and maybe with the intent to stage something. Sam, Noah Presgrove was topless at the party and remained topless throughout, and likely topless when he died and when he was found. But as for the shorts, depending on how you look at that, was Noah ever without his shorts? You'd anticipate the shower when you're having a wash, but as some witnesses have said in the past when seeing the footage themselves, they claim Noah was wearing the black shorts still. The next best thing is claims made by some, which could have involved Brooke Bounce-Carter, suggesting how Noah was supposedly teabagging people after he jumped out of the shower and he was naked, he wasn't wearing anything. Why did Noah do that? Was he joking, pranking about? Who knows? Did he actually have enough energy and the mood to do that after what's previously happened? If he needed escorting to the shower, what makes you think he was able to just hop out after shortly and start teabagging people? If you needed assistance and guidance in the first place, then maybe you were kind of out of it, unless after the shower, Noah was a bit more conscious, woken up better, and had a burst of energy. There might be some exceptions there. But whilst teabagging naked, the next supposed event claimed was Noah was fed some food by Carter Combs in the kitchen area, ramen noodles and yogurt. Well, if that really was the case, was Noah by that point wearing any shorts or not? And the mention of borrowing the white shorts, did Noah actually ask Jack at the time to borrow them, or did he just take them? I don't know, I can't remember personally. If Noah reached out to Jack and Jack was supposed to be asleep, then I guess Noah woke Jack up, maybe, or Jack was already up, walking about, and Noah approached him. At the end of the day, if there is video footage which shows at a relevant, important time of wearing white shorts, it will speak volume. But at this moment in time, can't really say too much about that. Sam, on the basis of Noah wearing white shorts and then walking away from the party and then death following shortly afterwards, does it explain the injuries to the body but no observable damage to the white shorts then? At first glance, you could find it a bit hard to believe that it is friction caused to the surface skin of Noah's cheeks, bottom area, for example, and maybe around the knee or just above. But you'd expect where clothing covers those areas, the clothing is first to receive the impact, the force and the friction, which can cause the material to rip, break down, and then reveal the surface level of skin to then be targeted next by the elements, the environment. Of course, but no observable damage. So, based on my outlook, if Noah Presgrove was wearing white shorts when he walked away, based on my opinion alone at this moment in time, it seems more likely it was an accident-based death due to the condition of the shorts and the condition of Noah's body in those respective areas. That you can have damage to an area of the body, but no damage to the clothing if the person wasn't wearing the clothing at the time of when the impact was done, but the clothing was still present. How could you look at that? Well, before I mention the accident aspect, the other concept, because I have just thought of it on the spot to balance it out, as an aspect of murder and beatdown, if Noah was wearing white shorts when walking away, to be attacked on site at the party house property, for example, the shorts would have had to have come off at some point, either by Noah's own choice when walking away for some weird reason, or a person or people decided to take them off, pull them off, because they knew they were Jack's and they didn't want them tracing back, maybe, which would trace back regardless then to the rightful owner. But beside that, when being beaten down by whatever, causing some of the injuries, if not all, depending on how you look at it, with respect, then being picked up and dumped off at the highway, and the white shorts being dumped off as well. Because you don't want to leave evidence behind, especially if it's occurred on site at the party house property. It would just lead to more questions, which probably people don't want and don't want answering to. So if you're going to move the body on, you'll probably move anything else nearby. And if the shorts were taken off somehow, it explains no observable damage, but they could have still been a bit dirty, you never know, depending on the environment and what they were exposed to. So when Noah's dumped off at the highway, so were the shorts, but in the middle of the road. Why exactly the middle of the road? I don't want to go too deep into it because I can do a separate video on it, but the concept of a staged hit and run, the injuries may not link to it, but just the amateur original aim of the environment aspect and some of the clothing is what could come to people's minds. But in a hit and run, shoes are more likely to come off than shorts because of how they're fitted on the body and where they're located. When you're hit by a vehicle, it can be clipped by the legs, flung over the vehicle, for example, or nudged, pushed back. Legs getting it first because of, depending on the height of the vehicle, of course, making contact and the way the bonnet front area sticks out, hitting your legs. Depending which way you're hit, you could fling back, your legs could fly up, and that jolt and force can send shoes flying off, depending on how well they're tied or placed on, slip-ons and so on. As for shorts, shorts are more likely to fall off if they were loose. We don't know the fitting of the white shorts on Noah. If they were very loose, yeah, they could have fallen off in some way. If they were somewhat fitted or clinged on, and if they were drawn with a string, depending, then likely they wouldn't have fallen off in a staged hit and run, unless they caught onto the moving vehicle, which pulled them off, but without much damage. But I don't think people would be thinking of that in the moment if they were staging it as something else. I think by chucking it in the middle of the roadway, that wouldn't be a smart idea if you're trying to stage a hit and run. To stage a hit and run, a more smarter approach would be to keep the shorts on Noah's body, whether he'd be wearing them at the time or not, just to have them on, and to take a shoe or two off and fling them about either in the middle of the road or by the side to make it look like he has been hit, he has landed on the ground, stopped at some spot, but his shoes have gathered elsewhere. Bit more consistent with a hit and run. The injuries may not, but the other aspects of storytelling can. But if anyone did attempt that, that clearly didn't work. Of course, because it was ruled out by police, but more so because of the shorts unlikely being found there if it was a hit and run. So I link back to the concept of an accident, as in a moving vehicle, wearing the white shorts. If Noah stood up, disorientated, groggy from being in a bit of a deep sleep, and the movement of the vehicle, unaware of what's going on. It's dark as well because of on the highway. And if there's movement and momentum shifting, losing balance and footing with being drunk as well, it's possible to fall out of a moving vehicle, and unknown to the driver and or passenger because they didn't anticipate Noah was in the back of the bed of the truck in the first place, possibly. Hence why no one's come forward or spoken out. So if you do fall out of the vehicle, how does that justify the white shorts being found in the middle of the road? Well, I have said it before, I've said it previous, I'll just highlight it again. When falling out of a moving vehicle, your shorts could catch on to the vehicle. So as you go one way, the vehicle is going in a different direction, and the shorts are following the direction of the vehicle. So providing the shorts are loose enough, they could slide off your legs. And as you're falling out of the vehicle, it's demonstrating the motion of someone pulling or you pulling your pants or trousers down, so they will fall off. But instead of falling off and collecting to the ground immediately, it's been described that the shorts were found a little bit further north of Noah's body in the middle of the road. So likely if Noah fell out of a moving vehicle and hit the ground, bumping along and then eventually collecting at the hard shoulder area, with the shorts just dangling onto whatever of the vehicle, with the speed and the wind and it blowing loose, no longer on Noah's body, there's nothing weighing it down as much or holding it up, that likely the wind will just blow through those shorts, blow through those leg openings, and a gust could cause them to fling off the vehicle and glide down, collecting in the middle of the road as the vehicle drives on. That can explain the distance between Noah to the shorts and where the shorts were found. And it would also explain no observable damage to the shorts, but damage to the respectable area where Noah received the injuries, where he would have been wearing the shorts. Because as he falls out of a moving vehicle, the shorts are still attached to the vehicle, for example. So when Noah hits the ground, the shorts are not touching the ground with the same force or impact as when Noah lands. So the body, the surface level, the skin is taking the full brunt of the force and friction. The shorts get a nice, gentle landing on the ground because of the lightness of them, and when they fling off the item they were attached to or caught on, like a parachute, something that is light, and I'm not an expert, but it can gather a bit of wind to slow it down, the drag factor, possibly, the drag factor. And it acts as like a parachute, slowing it down at the appropriate time. Maybe that applies to drag racing cars as well, or hot rods at some point when the parachute is deployed, but that's horizontal, not vertical. The shorts would act vertical when gliding back down. And with the force being so light and it landing downwards and not being dragged, it's not going to cause any observable damage. It's not going to cause any friction either. If in a different situation you had a pair of black shorts and for some reason you had them attached to something, not quite Noah, but just attached, and they were being dragged across a rough surface alone, because it's like horizontal, going in a certain direction, the movement, and it's catching on the ground, it's going to cause friction. If it was just to land vertical and drop down, it's not catching. The only exception of when material can catch and snag and tear, and even with a parachute, is if you were parachuting, for example, at any point, and you were descending into a woodland or where there's vegetation. You're going down vertical, you may scrape or catch onto branches and trees, and the same with the parachute. When it came to the Rebecca Zahau case, she was found naked and supposedly died naked. So there's no correlation with clothing catching or scraping or friction to the wall when going over the balcony, when being hung in some way, or even the vegetation nearby. However, the damage to her body on the outer surface, around the bottom area, the back more so, arms, abrasions, Similar to Noah Presgrove? Possibly. If there is movement, horizontal or vertical, there can be abrasions. As long as there is an object or an item nearby for you to scrape by or be dragged along, it's possible. If you're dragged across the ground by a vehicle tied to a rope, or if you fall out of a moving vehicle, you hit the ground, you bounce, you roll, and you're kind of dragging along horizontally, you're going to get tension and friction. It's going to cause abrasions, and maybe more, depending. If you're descending from a height, if you catch or drag along a wall beside you, or trees, plants and vegetation, that can cause grazes and scrapes too. Exactly how it was for Rebecca Zahau, because as she went over the balcony, face first, when she would have straightened out as the rope tightened, at some point in the process, she would have made contact with either the vegetation by the side close to the wall or the wall itself and grazing against it. And maybe even some grazes when going over the balcony in the first place. And that was a vertical drop, and there was still abrasions. If you can get abrasions from a vertical drop and whilst being hung, it's very likely for Noah Presgrove to get abrasions if in the presence of a road area, from a dirt road to the highway. And if those injuries and damages consistent to Noah's body based on that, and maybe the clothing too, does that determine exactly where he died at? You've also got the hybrid of maybe Noah died on site of the property, accidental or murder, but foul play would have had to have been involved regardless to be found at the highway. So if accidental, people would have incriminated themselves by moving the body onto the highway, which seems a bit silly. But if people panicked or felt that they could be responsible and they didn't want to get in trouble, they may have panicked and irrationally thought, let's move the body. Not the right thing to do, not exactly respectful, but protecting themselves in a slightly selfish way and not quite thinking it through. Always possible. But what I'm getting at is certain injuries could have been caused on site at the property. Other injuries could have been caused when at the highway. Are all injuries caused at the same time or in the same moment, in the same environment where it's all going off? Who knows? Can you actually time when a certain injury took place compared to the latter, the one before, the one after? Maybe not. Maybe they all happen at the same time. Or maybe one more significant one happened first and then the rest followed. Depends, I guess. If and how you make contact or impact with an object or to the ground. If, for example, head face first, you'd expect for that to be damaged first. And then the last thing to be damaged would be the last body part that makes contact with the object or ground, and so on from there. That if certain injuries were caused, or most were on site of the property, some of the abrasions or scrape marks on the back area or on one side more so dominated the left could have been caused by if the person was to be dropped off at the highway and dragged along onto the hard shoulder when being dumped. But if anyone felt responsible but it was an accident, but they panicked in staging the body, you would have thought they would have done it with a little bit more care. If that was the case, they wouldn't just be dragging a body, they would be respectfully placing it down, even though it's still not exactly respectful what they're doing. You may drag a body if it's too heavy. You may drag a body because you just have no respect for it or for them. If you killed them in the first place, likely, and depending on the injuries as well, likely you're not going to take much care with them in the afterlife either. But if it's an accident, you're probably going to be a little bit more careful, at least for the sake of if you feel sorry for what's happened, right? Some people panic in an accident. They may cover up the body out of respect and run away, may not even contact police or service. Some may contact a service, cover the body up out of respect, close the eyes out of respect, and then run away. Yeah, you can still criticize it, but there's still a level of regret. There's still a level of feeling, consideration, as bad as it is the situation. So there is a crossover of certain injuries here compared to elsewhere. Would there be a crossover with clothing though? Maybe not so much based on what I've said. So I do feel that white shorts could be more associated, if on Noah at the time of his death, more so with an accident, like with the moving vehicle. And due to the condition of the black shorts where there is observable damage, if they were to be worn during the death of Noah, they could either apply both accidental or a beatdown. But there would have to be probably friction for it to be tattered and torn to cause that type of damage to clothing compared to other stuff. If you had a bit of a sharp or jagged object, that could cause a bit of ripping and tearing, where it's not exactly sharp enough like a knife, but it does snag and catch on material, causing it to tear a little. That always has to be considered. So, with that being in mind, probably gone a bit deep already, but that's just my thoughts. Let's transition on over to the comment section on Facebook as to what people had to say about it. Here's one key comment which was brought up. What I do want to say is, I've got a few screenshots, the more important, relevant ones. As in total, there's 329 or so, over 300 comments, and I thought maybe that's one too many. So I just wanted to narrow it down to certain comments, because I think the ones that I've made already may have ticked most of the boxes which may have already come up in discussion. Miranda said, it said that a crying Avery Joe Combs, Avery Joe Howard, the birthday girl, handed all of Noah's belongings to L.E. Well, that can't exactly be true, because the black shorts have never been acknowledged or worded as in possession of police, that they went from Party House straight to Noah Presgrove. In regard to how long it took, not too sure about that. And when Dalen received them, they were washed immediately. Now, do you know what? If you didn't know that they were key pieces of evidence, it's understandable as to why you would wash them. But depending on who you are, would you wash them when it's the last known thing that Noah wore before he died, supposedly? Would you not keep and hold on to the scent? It all comes down to the person you are and how sentimental you treat things, or it's different for everyone, you know, in life and death, whether a person is still here or not. If you have somebody's item, something personal, you may value it more than money. It depends. You may hold it close to your heart. You may hold it close to your senses as a memory to remind you. So it can apply both life and death, that if you were missing someone badly, you really missed someone, but you had clothing, it could be seen as a form of comfort. It could bring just a little bit closeness to that individual you're no longer with or currently not around physically. So there's different levels to it. But how well do we know that it was Avery that handed all of Noah's belongings to L.E.? I'm guessing that would include the phone, but not the black shorts. So why is there still supposedly a level of selectiveness when it comes to what's handed into police and what isn't? Because if people thought the phone was relevant to the outcome of Noah's death, even though it was left behind and not on Noah at the time of his death, it should be treated the same with the shorts then. They belonged to Noah, they weren't on Noah, but they could still hold some knowledge somehow. Anyway, beside that, got another thread within the post. I'll zoom in if it makes it easier. George Choden. Nobody mentioned black shorts until months later. That's why. Black shorts weren't on Ellie's radar. And notice that the wrongful death lawsuit doesn't mention black shorts, etc. It's going to be very entertaining. Okay. I mean, off the top of my head, George, whilst it may have not mentioned black shorts in the wrongful death lawsuit, did it mention white shorts though? Did it mention the wallet? Did it mention the golf clubs and so on? Because I think the wrongful death didn't really go into too much detail in those areas. I could be wrong. I've not looked at it in a bit. But to try and figure it out, I can understand the aspect of the LE's radar when they're tracing and tracking and true crime, missing person and so on. You may rely on the victim's phone to get an idea of what's gone on, check for phone pings where they could have ended up, but normally you try and associate that with when it's on the holder, the owner, to figure out what was going on. If they left it behind, how does it link to the person's death? Well, in true crime cases, if they received a death threat, a harmful message, and they walked away from their phone to later die, that phone holds a story, traces back to someone that gave a death threat, and maybe traced a location too. So it may have not been on the victim at the time of the death, but it links back to the killer in some way. I'm not saying that that applies directly in Noah Presgrove's situation, but you will value electronical data and material more than a bit of clothing that was dumped in the party house, such as the bathroom area. Though, if the black shorts were on Noah at the time of his death and they were found, then they would be treated just as important as the phone, if not more. They might not initially be on the LE's radar because they're not knowing what to expect when they're coming across the body. They might anticipate some clothing, but not the specifics of it. So there's that to consider. But the aspect of nobody mentioned the black shorts, if you put aside the LE, are you referring to party goers and family members not knowing about the black shorts, so there was no reason to obtain them? At the end of the day, there is hard evidence, Sunday, Monday, of Noah wearing black shorts. So the family, whether they deemed it as evidence or not, would have wanted it back as soon as possible, just like the phone. But there would have been a level of understanding there, as in being patient. You can't have the phone until the police have processed it and then given the thumbs up and then hand it back to the family. As for the shorts, maybe there's no urgency to hand it in to authorities, but to at least hand it back. Surely there would have been a hunger and appetite there. Yes, it did mention by the family or on behalf of one of the family members or so that they didn't anticipate the situation with the black shorts, but when they received them, more so Dalen, they were washed. And I believe it was Robin's comment that kind of showed indirectly a level of regret. If we had known it was evidence, probably would have handed it in to police, or should have been dealt with in some way. I would say that if you didn't know about the shorts, but you would have known about the shorts, that Noah was wearing them if you look at party footage, hard evidence. And as for how Noah was found, if that's how you heard about the white shorts, then you might be dismissive of the black shorts. I would understand not taking the black shorts as serious if you've been told by police and so on that there's white shorts at the highway. So really, they're the main part, the focal point. You'd instantly assume, oh well, black shorts left behind, probably not worn at the time of his death, so naturally they're not going to have any evidence on them. But the phone was left behind, but still deemed as evidence. So why can't the shorts be deemed as evidence? They could have had touch-based DNA leading up to the point of Noah walking off, or just before certain events, just to tell a bit of a story in some way. And even if it was dismissed, as soon as you get those shorts back and you notice, oh, they're quite damaged, wouldn't that concern you? Even if it wasn't worn or found at the scene, damaged shorts if they were, and on top a damaged Noah Presgrove's body, you could link one to the other and think, is it possible that Noah sustained damage earlier on at the party and then later on received more and then he died? But in between that, at one point when he received damage, he was wearing black shorts, and that's what led to the shorts being damaged too. And then later the shorts were switched. And that is quite possible, and technically that is the case, but not in a really dark way. That Noah may have been wearing black shorts, side-by-side rollover, he injured himself, small scale, and the black shorts damaged as well, possibly. And then onwards, switching to the white shorts, ends up dying, but also incurring more injuries, if not much worse, but the white shorts aren't as damaged. And if you don't look at it deep enough, you could say, well, based on that, if Noah was to be slightly injured during the side-by-side rollover, and for the shorts, the black ones, to be pretty damaged, then you would assume that when Noah was wearing the white shorts when he died, due to the extensive extreme injuries to Noah and his body, you'd expect the white shorts to be beyond damaged then, based on that. It's not always the case, but you could think like that in the moment emotionally. So then you could question and say, well, based on that then, I think we need to take a reevaluate and look back on the black shorts, because this is not adding up. Noah Presgrove found on the side of the highway, white shorts in the middle of the road, not even damaged, yet the black shorts are visibly damaged and in the same area where Noah was injured too. I think we need to hand them back in. But the family did not do that, or didn't think that at the time. They just washed them, washing off possible evidence. Granted, there's always that possibility of contamination onwards, because if they were never handed in by police in the first place, to police, those that picked up the shorts to then pass them on to Dalen, additional touch-based DNA from that. So an overlap of additional DNA and not tampering, but just overlapping it, which isn't good. It gets in the way. The aspect of if they were found in the bathroom and if they were wet, depending on the variables, there could have been washed of some evidence at that moment when they were indirectly or inadvertently washed or splashed with water. So even if they hadn't been washed by Dalen, the DNA may have already been gone by then. So that is a possibility too. Hopefully that makes sense. Danielle Castle says to George, the story about Noah changing into white shorts after the shower came from the partygoers themselves. You'd expect that, of course, with them being the main witnesses present to Noah at the time. You'd hope that it's correct. It's reasonable to expect law enforcement would look into what he was actually wearing at the time. Yeah. The last known video shows Noah in black shorts. Which video is that, Danielle Castle? Are you referring to 1:05 in the morning, where Noah's slapped by Brylan? Yet, it's been said that LE has footage of him later in white shorts. Yeah, that is interesting, of course, and I've heard that mentioned too. But it's not been released public. But it's been said in the background that it does exist to some capacity. So, how does that turn everything about? Well, if the LE is knowing that there is proof of Noah in white shorts, then it's of the LE's interest and mindset to say, well, the black shorts can probably be ruled out. But in terms of the general public, or more so Noah's family, you'd expect them to be sceptical of the black shorts, at least due to the condition that they're in, to some extent. And as like what George says, people not knowing about the black shorts, like they never existed, or people weren't aware of, in general, well, there's video footage of Noah wearing the black shorts at some point at least. Anyway, that raises questions. If black shorts were never on the radar early on, it doesn't show the rest, unfortunately. Do we have any other slides? Siobhan, I don't think Ellie was ever worried about the black shorts because they have had the snaps from the beginning showing him in the white. Does that add on here? I think so. Okay, Snapchats from him in white, eating after the shower. Black shorts were never questioned until Caden came out with his claims. Okay, I get that. I do understand. I understand from the aspect of the LE why they wouldn't be worried about black shorts if the main focus is on the white and when Noah was walking away. But I think if you're trying to do a timeline in understanding what caused what, if it's associated with video footage, if it does exist out there, it's like what Caden said from a photo he saw from a video of the after effects of the rollover, and Noah Presgrove is visibly injured to a minor extent, busted nose or lip with blood. Were the black shorts damaged at that time and ripped? Because if so, it would tick it off the list. Then you wouldn't need to hand it in to police, because you can associate damaged shorts to that particular event before Noah died, because the video footage shows the condition of the shorts from that event. that would be understandable. Just like from the Ellie's perspective of Noah to be found with white shorts near to him on the middle of the road, but there was also video footage of him before walking away wearing the white shorts, so you'd anticipate that being the main focus. So, I still think the black shorts need clearing up and explaining as to why they were in the condition that they were in, pretty much. And at what time will we get this footage which comes out showing the white shorts more so? Siobhan, also to add, they were offered the black shorts off the bathroom floor that morning. Ellie saw with their own eyes where the shorts were that morning. If I be honest with you, okay, it's been mentioned about LE inspecting the odd vehicle or side-by-side, but I've never once heard the LE actually, like, a search warrant going into the house to look about. I don't remember the LE ever going inside of the party house. But then again, in fairness, they would have gone round initially on the day when Caden Pressey supposedly said he was told to leave by Renee because the police were on the way. So when the police were on the way and came on down to the party house to ask questions, whilst only asking questions, would they have witnessed Noah's black shorts in the bathroom area? I don't know. If you're there just for questioning and only that, you don't really have a search warrant then. And I'm sure it's been mentioned in the community that there was never a search warrant at the property or the house itself. And that if it was, it would have yielded more results and luminol and blood and all of that, as people have said over and over again. If there's any counterpoints to that or updates, it's welcome in the comments section. Denise Rogers-Arnold to Danielle Castle. I don't think it was an oversight by Ellie. I honestly believe that nobody believed anybody except for Caden Pressey in the beginning, in spite of all of Noah's other friends stating he walked off in white shorts. I think it was just something that the people on these pages, it might move on to the next one. I think it was just something that people on the pages perhaps didn't want to believe or couldn't believe, but LE does have that footage. I don't know if that puts anybody's mind at rest. Danielle Castle saying nobody mentioned black shorts until months later is honestly pretty misleading. That's not the full picture truth. Nobody mentioned black shorts. Nobody mentioned black shorts, but black shorts were seen in the video footage. Just like, the golf clubs and bag have been talked about more so because of the Caden Pressey situation. So, okay, let's just acknowledge one thing. There are certain items which have come up in great discussion because of the influence of the Caden Pressey effect, highlighting the golf club and bag situation, the scrap pile, and then the black shorts at the highway, but then later no longer being there. So, some of the items of interest of Noah's personal possessions or temporary possessions at the time have been talked about heavily in the community, driven through and influenced by Caden Pressey's account of stuff. If it wasn't for Caden Pressey, people probably wouldn't talk about it as much. So there might be an emotional connection tied with that to some extent. Danielle, just because others have said Noah walked off in white shorts, that explained why the white shorts were on the highway. But the last video shows him clearly in black. If Ellie has footage showing white shorts later, then why not clarify with publicly? Yes, release public to avoid all the confusion. And about the black shorts being dirty are different than tattered, but that doesn't automatically mean whatever. Siobhan, it is my understanding the black shorts were not mentioned by anyone publicly until Caden, which was months later. Oh, maybe some of the stuff was in the wrong order, the screenshots, until months later. Caden Pressey being the catalyst behind it. Okay. Why was it Caden Pressey then to bring it to light? To put it on the map about the black shorts? Why was it not Noah's family when it was deemed at least as a missing item? Or was it not a missing item? I mean, if it was handed back immediately, then fair enough. There's no reason for the family to talk about it whatsoever, I guess. But maybe something different like the golf clubs and bag. Who brought that up first? Was it Caden Pressey? Until months later? Because if it was, why didn't the family bring it up earlier? I was trying to use that example with the shorts, but then I realised quickly, probably not possible, unlike the other item. Let's move on. Is this the last one? Yes, it is. So there we go. Also, I know for a fact Noah was in white shorts after the eating and shower. I have seen the Snapchat pictures. That is why I'm confident about black shorts being on the bathroom floor. Well, fair enough. Now, Siobhan, do those snap pictures still exist, and how did you see them yourself? Because I haven't. There was an example which was presented to me of a video clip claiming that Noah was in the white shorts, but it wasn't allowed to be shown public. But what I will tell you with my own eyes, I did not see the white shorts and the video quality was blurry, okay? And I said, are there any better angles where it's really clear and noticeable? Because it just wasn't in what I saw. It wasn't good enough whatsoever. And it wasn't me being picky, it was me being honest and natural. So it seems like what Siobhan has seen is something that I haven't. And, you know, Siobhan is referring to pictures. I didn't see pictures, I saw a video and the claim attached as in white shorts, but I did not see the white shorts. Siobhan has seen the white shorts clear, but they were a photo or a screenshot from a snap video. Do they still exist, Siobhan? Is it possible to reach out or pass them on in some way? And Danielle says, I think the way it was worded, black shorts weren't on Ellie's radar, can be a bit misleading and cause unnecessary confusion. There's a difference between what was publicly known and what people personally knew or were saying. They knew all along. When something isn't brought up until months later, like Caden mentioning the black shorts, it naturally raises question, especially. Okay. Moving on to the aspect of certain abrasions, like surface layer on the front and the back. Take in mind, it's not heavily dominated in the area where shorts would be, but is there enough abrasion marks on the bottom and front area to justify rips and tears to the black shorts? Well, it depends on how badly damaged the black shorts were compared to how badly damaged Noah's body in that region was. So it's, for most part of it, the abrasions are the bottom area, the cheek, the like upper hamstring, if you want to put it like that. So there's like crisscross lines. You got a bit on the knee as well, but the shorts probably wouldn't go that low down. So in this area here, just a little abrasion left and right at the front. And then the back area, not so much on the cheeks, but more so just slightly under. Based on that, based on the amount of injuries, or more so the lack of it in that area, does it make me think that the black shorts are consistent with being worn at the time of Noah's death or the accident death of Noah? I don't think so. But what it would likely mean is, for some minimal damage, minimal abrasions in that area, and considering there was no observable damage on the white shorts, Noah would have had to have been naked, likely at the time of his death, for the damage to be done in that area, but for the shorts to remain in somewhat decent condition, with the exception of possible marks and stains and dirt patches and dust, which can come off or be cleaned. So there's that. Of course, it is always interesting that when it comes to the back on the left-hand side, it's heavily dominated by abrasions, as example. Now, Noah Presgrove was topless. So with being topless, the injuries sustained there, if he had been wearing a tank top, you could have argued that it may have been damaged on the left-hand side based on the surface level of damage here, the contact of clothing would make first with whatever, but wasn't wearing it. And as for the shorts, well, the condition that they were in, the white ones, probably wouldn't have been worn at the time of the death, or may have been in the process, but not the impact stage, if that makes sense. Personally, I think this video was possibly needed and has a bit of a grounding effect as to what to expect in the Noah Presgrove case, or to bring things back to reality based on the conditions. You could summarize it and say black shorts maybe more likely equal possible death if you used to look at it without all the context, just because of the condition of the shorts, and then white shorts to try and justify that, and Noah 2 more accidental. But that is just a very rough way of looking at it, hence why this longer video was needed to go into the different possibilities of it all. As I've always said, that when people have asked me, and I know Justin has as well, people sometimes ask, and it's like, well, there's a time and place for an answer. That when it comes to my outlook on either the cause of death, the type of death, the location of death, well, I think it's determined partially and can be a bit of a deciding factor with the white shorts and video footage and proof of that before walking away from the party house. And once that can be shown, analysed, it might link more onto the accident theory based on what I've been saying previous. But not much has changed since, because not much has changed. Until it does, well then not much can really be done. But as said, with limited stuff that you may have, you just work with what you've got. Okay, so that's kind of like what I did today. As for the theme of staging a hit and run, the mindset, the psychology behind that, the intentions which people may have in the community for the outlook towards that concept, well, there was a particular post, I believe, on Facebook going into that, so I could take that into mind and give my analysis and response to it to put things into perspective. But I think we'll leave it there for now. We've gone deep enough. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you'd like to share it and hit the thumbs up, that'd be appreciated. My name's Wallite Raf. I'll see you next time. Goodbye for now.